Hello, welcome. My name is Amanda Zane, and this is the Meditative Art Mandala class. And this exercise is such a valuable tool for not just coming to your centered, focused awareness, but for processing emotions, maybe ones that you didn't even know were there. I utilize in my daily life movement of energy because emotions are energy in motion rather. And some of my most used tools are yoga, even just simple yoga postures to get the energy moving. Breathing, even holding your breath in for 3 seconds and out for 3 seconds. Walking, just taking a simple walk around the park. Sketching, journaling, and of course, art. Art has been transformative when it comes to deep emotional healing and processing. For some reason, the process of creating or doing art allows you to get into that flow state. So I can be in a state of depression, anxiety, grief, confusion. And as I move along the art practice, I find that I start to get feelings of joy, of relief, of clarity. So, my intention for sharing this meditative mandala practice is that you have a concrete tool to use for moving that emotional energy. And the best part is you get these beautiful little relics of your process. Now, this is one my son did, and he used crayon. So, you can see the mandala, which Buddhist monks and other spiritual practitioners have used for thousands of years to focus the mind and move the energy. You can see that with a mandala, there's always a center, and that the items around that center are all symmetrical. So that's why we are going to be using either a circle. Now, this is just part of a package that I got. So whenever I see a circle or a square, cardboard or otherwise, I save it for my art. This is a square canvas. I found this square canvas at a thrift store and then painted over it with acrylic, let it dry, and then I did my mandala on this. So you can see this is a little different than this, but they don't have to look any certain way. The only principles that we get to keep in mind during this process are the center and that the elements around it are symmetrical. So whether you have a square canvas or a round canvas, cardboard, whatever, we will divide that surface into fourths. So I have my trusty ruler. If you don't have a ruler, I just find anything straight and then mark it in equal sections because we will be needing to map out our symmetrical sections using some sort of measuring stick. So I took the skewer and I kind of mapped out these segments with a Sharpie if you don't have a ruler. So that will come in handy. We also have our pencil. We want to be using pencil when we're mapping out our mandala, when we're creating the grid, because we'll want to be able to erase that. We want it to be light enough that our acrylic paints will cover the sections, but we will need to see the grid as we go. We'll also need 3 colors of any acrylic paint. I just have a bunch of acrylic paint lying around. I decided to go with metallic theme. So I have 3 metallic colors. Now you can find acrylic paints at anywhere from a big box store to a specialty art store online. It really doesn't matter what colors you choose. Just choose what you're drawn to because art is very intuitive. It's working in the emotional, it's working in the color spectrum. And as we know with color therapy, color has an effect on how we feel. So I am taking this paper bowl and I'm putting my 3 colors in there. Sometimes I wait till after I've done the grid to lay out my paints, but I'm going to do this now. So it doesn't have to be pretty. It can be messy. Oh, and I will need a different paint. This paint is a dud. Oh well. Okay, so to begin the grid, this is a pretty simple part of the process. We're going to take either a square or round canvas and make quadrants. So we'll start with a center point. Well, actually, we won't start with that center point. We will do an X across the entire canvas to make sure that we are finding that center point where it's supposed to be. So right now, I'm taking my ruler, and I'll show you in just a moment where we're going after this. Now, this is part of the meditative process because this is technical. When we're mapping out a grid, we're measuring, we're aligning, and this can be very soothing for our logical brain. Our logical brain likes to have systems and processes. So with our meditative art mandala that turns into kind of an intuitive flow, we also have this opportunity to, let's see. So you could see where I have that line and then that line, and then that gives me my center. Okay, and the center is the most important part of this. Now we have a quadrant mapped out. You see my little X, it's very light. We have quadrants, but I'm going to split these up even more because as we move around the center, we are going to want these sections to be very clear so that we can make our design as symmetrical as possible. So what we're doing is we're creating these pie slices, these sections, because as we move around the mandala here, we're going to be doing the same design in each of the sections. Does that make sense? So mine is absolutely not perfect. The sections are not equal, but from here, I'm noticing where my center is, and that is what I need to know. So I'm going to make a few more of these pie slices and clean up some of these sections until they look like they're equal pie slices, if that makes sense. So it's helpful to have that eraser, isn't it? Okay. Now this process becomes a meditation as we get more comfortable in the flow. The principles of meditation according to the 8 limbs of yoga, the last 3 limbs are the structure for meditation, and that's dharana, or point of focus, which leads us to dhyana, our meditative state, which leads us to samadhi, or that feeling of oneness, that bliss. Now, with this, we're setting ourselves up for the dharana, the point of focus, and that is going to be concentrating on each section, making each section symmetrical. Once we have it mapped out, do you see my pie slices? They're very light. Once we have those sections mapped out, see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections, which means I created not just the cross-section lines, the X marks the spot, but then I also did 2 more cross sections. Now we are going to go along these sections with our ruler, with our measuring stick, and we're going to mark about an inch down each of these pie slice lines. Let me do one and show you, because as we can start painting in just these pie slices and we can stay pretty symmetrical. But if you want to do a little more intricate design, it's nice to have these pie slice boundaries marked about an inch across, an inch down the line, in inches. I'll show you here in just a moment. And why are we doing that? Because if we want to get more detailed with it, then we're going to want to make spheres. We're going to want to make circles, mapping this further. So if you see here, I marked an inch increments down each section of this pie slice. And that's because I'm going to connect these marks with circles so that I give myself an even smaller section in each of the pie slices to be able to make my artwork even more symmetrical. So you can use your ruler for this. I have a skewer that, like I said, I marked with inch sections just to have in my little art kit. And I'm going to go down each of these boundary lines. Now, this is for making it more intricate. You definitely do not have to have this. You could even just work with a bigger design in your quadrants. Or if you split up your square or round canvas into like 7 pie slices, like I did with the 2 X's, then you could even just work in there with bigger designs, just as long as you follow the principle of making each pie slice, each section, the same. Now, I want to give you an example of a little bit more intricate, because I have this example of the one that's a little less intricate. So I'm almost done marking out my 1-inch sections down my boundaries, and then we'll go from there. But this mandala, this I didn't do as intricate. I didn't, like, there are some mandalas that have teeny tiny little designs all around, and that's when marking out your boundaries like this with the 1-inch sections comes in really handy. But if you didn't want to do that, you can just work in the quadrants or the 7 pie slices and just make sure these sections are symmetrical. Okay. I'm obviously working with having the filming be opposite of where I think it's going to be. So thank you for your patience. Okay, now let me show you why these 1-inch sections are helpful when it comes to more intricate designs. So I'm going through and connecting the 1-inch marks around the center. So do you see how there's the 1-inch marks in each of the boundaries? Now I'm going through and connecting the 1-inch marks, and I'll go through and do that for each section. Okay, and my center is not perfect, but art is not perfect, especially when we're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming for a meditative, focused flow. Now, if you want to be meticulous about it, you can use a protractor, and you can make these concentric circles without even measuring it out. You can just go through with your protractor on the center and create bigger and bigger circles and then work in those sections. So there's a lot of leeway, a lot of different methods for creating a mandala that's symmetrical and with varying degrees of technicality. One of the reasons that I do art is because I want to flow. So this technical section where we're measuring out, this is not my favorite part, but it's also really good for me because it allows me to build my focus, train my focus on that structure, on that technicality. And that translates directly into my daily life. If I have trained my focus, that means that I've built my patience because I can keep taking my awareness back to the task at hand, which allows me to go through that to-do list, stick with the application I'm doing, stick with the task until it's completed. Because like dharana, that point of focus leading to our flow state, once we decide what we're focusing on, we direct our energy there. And the more we keep coming back to that point of focus, the more our brain settles into that is what the task is. So I will find that I will resist doing these meditative art practices or even meditating in general because I'm a meditation teacher. I will resist actually sitting with it. But once I sit with it and I'm training my focus, then it's easier to do the art practice the next time because I've trained myself that it is a really healing practice. Okay, so that looks a little like a spider web. My center is off, clearly, but that's okay because I can cut this when we're done. I'm just going to focus on the part that is symmetrical and work in that area. So if you need more time to map out your sections, then feel free to pause this video. We are going to move along. Now, I did not give you specific paintbrushes to use. I have a bunch that I can choose from, and I really wait till I'm sitting with my art practice to see which ones call to me. Now, once you get the hang of what each brush will create for you, then you'll start to know, okay, I need this more fine-tipped brush, or I want to cover a lot of ground and make straight lines at the same time, so I want more of a square tip brush. You can't really go wrong with these round-tipped brushes. These are definitely a favorite in the art community. So I'm going to choose the one that I'm going to use for my center point because this is the beginning of our mandala practice, choosing the intention for that center point. So I'm going to use kind of a square, short one because I've noticed that it can make a center dot pretty easily. And once you have that paintbrush picked out, once you have your paint in your bowl or paper plate or whatever you have, then come to your body. Come to your focused awareness within you of your breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. 2 more times. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now this painting, this mandala is dedicated to a specific intention, something you want to be, feel, do, or have in your physical experience. Because art is an opportunity to take the non physical into the physical. So it's working on a lot of levels here. So, with this particular mandala, what is your intention? What is your focus in this part of your life? Even if it's just this exercise or this day. Is it joy? Is it prosperity? Is it better relationships? Is it nourishing yourself? Is it your dream home, a job that fulfills you? You can choose any intention. If you deserve more time to find that intention, I would suggest pausing this video and asking your heart, what is my deepest desire? What do I want? Now we are going to keep that in mind as we intuitively choose the color for our center dot. Okay, I'm going to get my paintbrush ready with the paint, and with my intention in my mind and my heart, I'm going to paint that center dot on that crisscross of all of your quadrants. I'm going to paint a nice dot in the center there. Okay, that dot is that energy of your intention, and it's going to radiate throughout your mandala. With this mandala, this was joy and nourishment. And when I see this, it's like medicine. I feel that wellness. I feel that lightness, that brightness. Okay, so that's just to show that the intention does make a difference in the energy of what your mandala ends up feeling like. Now, the meditative part of this practice is mainly found in this part, where now that we've done the center, you can turn on music, you could turn on a podcast, whatever your desire is to get in that flow state. But I find simply that the focus on the strokes and paying attention to where your paintbrush wants to go is the meditation, is the point of focus. It gets you into that flow state. So now I'm going to work in each quadrant, in each pie slice, separately, but connecting them. So whatever I do in one, I do in the others. Of course, you can work in patterns where you skip a pie slice or a quadrant, but you keep the pattern the same throughout your mandala, if that makes sense. I'll do an example here. So I'm using some principles of energetic symbols, like the ancient Egyptians. They worked with symbols a lot. And for example, a pyramid represents emotional balance. So I'm going through, and I'll show you here in a moment, and making pyramids around the exterior of my dot. And I didn't put them in each quadrant, but I'm doing a pattern. Here, I'll show you. Okay, So you see how I skipped one of the pie slices, but it's going to look symmetrical. So seriously, whatever wants to come out, allow it to flow. Some may be drawn to more angular designs, while some may be drawn to some more circular or fluid designs. I intend that mine is a mix of both. Now, I've run into a little problem here, which isn't really a problem. That looks like the radiation symbol. I skipped 2 quadrants here, so it's not symmetrical yet. So I'm going to go in and fill in this full circle with this copper color because that pattern doesn't work. It won't be symmetrical if I do that pattern. So just like with our meditation, if we hear a big noisy thing outside our meditation that snaps us out of that blissful state, we come back to the focus, we bring our mantra back, we bring our awareness on the breathing back. Basically, there's no problem that we can't find our focus again after. So as long as we keep adjusting, stay flexible, return to our focus, then our meditation continues. So what I'm doing is I'm flowing and just making this whole first layer that copper color. Now you'll notice as your paint dries that an acrylic is known to dry really quickly. As your paint dries, you'll notice that you can paint over it with other colors. So now that I have my center filled in with this copper color, I will be able to go through and add more detail if I desire after it dries. But for now, I'm going to keep going into the other sections. Are you noticing by now how you can make each section unique, where you start with one section and you do the design and then copy that in each of the sections? Because once you have that principle down, then you can keep going as far as you want. You don't have to have it look a certain way. You don't have to have it look like a typical mandala. You can have all sorts of patterns in each section. You can alternate patterns and colors as long as there is a pattern. Okay, this is your practice, your mandala. And again, if they're not exactly symmetrical, just aim for as similar as you can. Because the eye, the brain, it will fill in some of those imperfections when you see it as a whole. Can you feel how the concentration takes you from the world of stress and issues, and I call it staying at the level of the mind, into the present moment where there's a lot that is not wrong. Focusing on a task like this brings you into what is real, which is what's happening right now. The past has already happened. The emotions of the past may be feeling safe to be released through this process. We are no longer in the past, so allowing those energies to find their way out of you and into this painting will solidify your showing up in the present moment without those ghosts of the past. Okay, so this is where I'm at so far. I'm just painting like this leaf symbol in each of the pie slices. I wish I could see yours. Now, there's no rhyme or reason to when you use which color or how much. It's purely your intuition. You've already set the intention of what is happening as you're painting this design. So just trust that that intention is working its magic. Intentions are like shooting an arrow. The target is the result of the intention. It's your intention. The intention is the target. But it's also directing the energy, the arrow, towards it. It's like magnetizing the arrow, your life, towards that target. So if we're living life without setting intentions or being intentional, is it any surprise when we don't hit the target? Now, one of the most intentional cultures that I've learned about through experience is the North American indigenous cultures of the Southwest of Alaska. And the mentors who I've learned from, every part of their day is intentional. My main mentor of Inuit heritage, every morning he took his big eagle feather fan and his sage, and he walked around the entire property of his home, clearing the energy and saying prayers of protection. He also did it with his body, setting intentions for his health, well-being, gratitude, and then set intentions for loved ones. And this was just in the morning, every day. Yeah, I'm almost ready to show you where I'm at now. There's no rush to this. If you do a little piece today and then a little piece tomorrow, that's totally fine. But intend to finish it because your intention is working through this painting, this process. So I recommend being devoted to yourself in that way of creating spaces and opportunities for you to connect with that intention, of you to direct that arrow towards that target. We set goals in America around New Year's, but we don't have to wait till the end of the year or the beginning of the year to set our intentions. Okay, so I've gone through many layers of my mandala grid, and now I'm going to go through and fill in between these designs with the other colors. Most people have no idea how effective art is at moving trapped emotions or old stagnant memories until they begin a project like this. And then they have memories come up, or they start to feel lighter, or they feel like they need to cry. It's a alchemical process, art, painting. You may have seen or heard about the monks who will do these giant mandalas and then let the wind scatter them or let them be blown away or, for lack of a better word, destroyed. And that is another layer of this practice that we won't cover here, but one of the principles that Buddhist and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, where we got the 8 limbs of yoga, which is kind of a blend of Vedanta, one of the oldest systems of energy practice and meditation, from which Buddhism sprang, and Hinduism and Jainism and a whole lot. Vedanta is one of the oldest, most complete systems for being human and being self-actualized. But one of the principles that the Buddhists carry on from that is non-attachment. And although we're not destroying our mandalas, I mean, you are definitely free to do whatever you wish with your finished mandala. Like burning is a form of transformation, but we are employing the principle of non-attachment by how we respond when our design doesn't turn out as we had hoped or as we had pictured. So we can allow ourselves to let go of how our intention is being carried out by letting go of how our mandala turns out and trust that you will be guided and that all mistakes are divine throughout the process. Because we are not only painting because we are putting energy and focus towards our intention, but we're also painting to move the energy, to move those trapped emotions. So you never know. Maybe that little mistake is allowing you to get deeper into a particular emotion that wants to be released. Now, the process that we're doing is meditative. And it's also, like I said, with my medicine mandala for nourishment and joyful nourishment. These can also be a form of magic, of medicine. And when you complete yours, and there may be some, I really do intend that you practice this regularly, like making time for yourself to do one of these or do a similar art project. But when you create one that just gives you a very special feeling, you've likely created a medicine mandala. And you can also intend to create those too. Like we know that with whatever intention we set, this particular mandala is going to be medicinal in that way where it will remind you of your intention. But sometimes they definitely take on a more powerful energy. Okay, working my way around. For example, I'm intentionally using the shapes from Egyptian biogeometry, where certain shapes have an effect on the emotional plane, the physical plane, the spiritual plane. And I'm already noticing how my intention to utilize some of those shapes are coming through exactly as they need to. Like I didn't plan for how they are going to look. I just intended that I was going to use some of those shapes, and my intuition is just putting them exactly in the position that they need to be, and exactly the ones that are most important to my intention. For example, those spear looking things, you have an incoming call. Pardon me, are the symbol for vitality in the physical. One moment here. Whereas the disc in the middle, pardon me, Bluetooth disconnected. My phone was going off. I apologize. The disc in the middle represents the physical. And so I'm having these spears around, which stands for vitality, and plus these beautiful circular feminine shapes that represent the spiritual. So even just this, what I feel like is very imperfect, a little messy, I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing medicine. I'm seeing power that's being communicated to me on a level that's energetic. So it's medicine, energy medicine. It's not just the process of me creating it that's meditative and medicinal, but this finished form is also um, medicine by when I view it, when I'm around it. That may not make sense to you, and that's okay. Now, if you have people in your life, veterans, children, anyone going through a rough time, anyone who could benefit from the meditation's benefits without, having to sit and meditate. Some people find that really difficult, and I totally get it. You can share this practice with them. It's very easy to teach once you've done it. So you can watch this again and go through it with your loved ones. You can share this at your church group, your girls' night, in your community, because this is a perfect gateway into meditation. We're utilizing all of the principles of a meditation practice. We are prioritizing time. We're devoting some time to ourselves, which is crucial for a meditation practice. You get to dedicate 10 minutes a day, or 20 minutes a day, or 20 minutes twice a day, as I was taught, to yourself, to sitting. Then you're also employing your dharana, your point of focus. I teach mantra meditation as well as meditations with other points of focus, like walking meditation, breathing meditation, journeying, and visualization. But that point of focus is crucial, I've found, in your meditation practice. And with that, we find ourselves with regular practice of training our brain back to the point of focus because our brains wander off. Even with this, our mind wanders, and that's normal. We don't control the mind. All we do is bring it back to our focus, and that harmonizes our brain waves and gets us into that state of dhyana or flow of meditation, of beingness, of being in the present moment. And so this process is a beautiful representation of all the elements that make up a meditation practice. And when you do this on your own without me talking, when you're listening to music or when you're focusing on your breath, you're going to find that this process can get you into the state of samadhi, of oneness, of bliss. It can get you into the state of feeling lightness of being. Power off. Pardon all these sounds. My speaker just said power off. So that fits perfectly for what we're talking about. It can get you into that state of no mind even. Okay. There is my mandala as it is now. I'm going to let this dry for a little bit because I want to go in and add some detail. And it is definitely not perfect. It's not perfectly symmetrical. I definitely intended for that to be. But it's perfect just the way it is because that is emotional energy that has been moved. This is color therapy. It's energetic therapy with the symbols that I intended. It's a representation of my intention materializing the physical. So we are very powerful beings. And coming back to the present moment, devoting time to yourself and working with art not only moves the emotions that might be trapped or that you're feeling are weighing you down, but it also transforms your state of being, maybe into one of contentment, even joy, but definitely a little bit lighter. So it's my intention that you feel relief knowing that there is an actual tool, a skill that you have that when life comes at you hard, if you just devote a little bit of time to yourself, be it with this meditative mandala art practice or meditation itself, or one of those other practices I mentioned, like taking a walk, journaling, drawing, hanging with pets, being with loved ones, drinking your favorite tea, that you can and will come back to the present moment as you train your focus to do so. You are amazing. You are perfect just the way you are. I am here. If you have any questions, please email me. My email is in the description box below. And I have a lot of other fun ways to change your state of being, to enlighten your perspective, and to find more joy in your life. So I hope you get in touch if that calls to you. Happy art journey. You have officially started. Congratulations. I would love to see how your mandala turned out. And again, keep going. Keep advocating for yourself. You are worth it.